here today on a guest, and I'm privileged to introduce Urson Russell, who will present the California State of Elections, and he will let us know what we need to know and what we need to do. But first, I want to read his impressive bio, and honestly, it tells it all. This man is amazing. Russell is the president of Patriot Force California, a grassroots organization that works to restore election integrity by educating citizens on how their elections are run in California, along with informing them on their civic duty to preserve our republic form of government, not democracy, our Republican form of government. Patriot Force also represents California for Cause for America. That's Mike Lindell's grassroots organization that works with various networks in other states across the country. Urson is not paid to work on elections, but he's a volunteer, like countless others, donating their precious time and their treasure to help others through training, mentoring, and his leadership skills. Urson works with a team of specialists in database management, data management, and architecture, research, Canvas training, geographic information systems, California public record requests, and dozens of other large grassroots organizations throughout the state to help take back control of our elections. He helps people across the state to understand the most effective method by which our elections can return to honest, transparent, accurate, and with nothing left to trust. So with that, I want to hand you over to our esteemed and honored guest today, Urson Russell.
Of other people giving their precious time. We all met each other online after 2020. I've never really been politically active most of my life. And so the elections in 2020 got my attention and started trying to find people online that had kind of similar goals. And so we started Patriot Force California in October of 2021. So we're just coming up on our 3-year anniversary here as an organization. And when we first got involved, we started looking at all the different organizations, the Republican clubs, the CRA, Eagle Forum, the Election Integrity Project of California, and the list goes on and on. And so where we really wanted to focus our organization's efforts was on the education of our actual election systems in California, because they're quite diverse, and we'll get into that in a moment. And then the second thing was to promote civic duty. And a lot of people say, well, civic duty is following the laws and paying your taxes, but there's also, if you look at the founders of our country, and what a great piece, whoever read that earlier, that was extraordinary. Thank you so much for that. What a way to start the meeting. Our founders and their vision on you being involved in your own governance, right, is obviously by you serving. And so the thought has come to my mind now after being a career businessman for most of my life is, well, I might have to sacrifice some of that time. I may need to go serve in my city council. And so we'll talk about that as well. I start with this slide up here always because this is how I feel about things. This is my Spartan roar. And this is my shield of God that's taking me through this endless battle of frustration and knowledge. And Dr. Thomas Sowell, he said it best. He said it takes considerable knowledge just to realize the extent of our own ignorance. That is so extraordinarily profound. And all the things that we thought or believed or knew and what we're continuing to think and learn and know is really shows this time and place that we're at in human history, let alone American history. So let's get started. We've got some things we're going to focus on a little bit more. I usually do speak for a little bit longer, but I have the extraordinary pleasure to be here today and go through some of this information with you. We're going to cover quickly, I'll turn that on, works better that way. Quickly, four challenges that we've got in California. Number one is our highly concentrated population. LA County takes the cake, and thank God we're not there. A corrupt board, a corrupt sheriff, a corrupt register of voter handling elections, and an ultra-corrupt district attorney. Thank the Lord that we're here in Orange County fighting the fight we're fighting. They're about a quarter of our entire state's population in 8 counties. That is important because when we have statewide elections like we've got right now for president and U.S. Senate, Up here at the top, you can see in the 2022 elections for governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, all 8 of the statewide races that were up there. When we just look at Los Angeles County alone, they have more Democrats that turn out to vote in the elections than Republicans. Albeit, whether it's legitimate or not, that's what was certified to the state, so I'm looking at raw numbers here, okay? And in those elections, when you average out all those races, LA County accounts for 860,000 almost more Democrat votes in that one county. Now, out of our 58 counties, we have 32 counties that actually lean towards a Republican side of things. This is the list of all the Republican counties here. And you can see when you add up all of the overvotes of Republicans, that's about 360,000. LA County alone wipes out all 32 other Republican-leaning counties in a state. When we add in other Democrat-leaning counties like Alameda County, Santa Clara, San Francisco, and so forth, we actually end up with about a 2.4 million vote net deficit. Now, I'm speaking to you about this because of simply the fact of statewide races. And we have a huge imbalance of power in LA County especially. How do you think Lassen County feels here when they voted 80% in favor for Republican candidates in the 2022 election, yet their voice is just completely silenced? And so it doesn't mean that Trump winning California in the 2024 election is impossible, but we've got 2.4 million votes that we need to overcome. Whether they're legitimate or not, that's what we need to overcome. And we're going to spend some time about that when we talk about voting today. This is the Vote Cal and the Voters' Choice Act. The Voters' Choice Act is what started to give a ballot out to everybody in the world, right? And I'm sorry, I need something here that I forgot in my bag. That's what started giving a ballot out to everybody in the world that was an active eligible voter. In addition to that, we started early voting, and we could accept ballots up to 3 days after Election Day if they were properly postmarked. The VoteCal system is what's connected the county rolls to the state, much like your ATM is connected to your bank account. And so instead of our counties managing the rolls and pushing this stuff up to the state for reporting purposes, this stuff is all being pushed down from the changes at the Department of Motor Vehicles when you get your ID or your driver's license. How many people here know you're automatically opted in to vote when you get your ID or driver's license? Automatically opted in, meaning if you miss checking the box, you're going to be registered to vote whether you like it or not. Those all come from the state and come down to the county. And so the challenge is that creates this central control where the counties go, we're just following the law. Well, the law isn't all that good for transparency and accountability and fiscal responsibility. And we'll look at some of those things. So here's prior to the Voters' Choice Act, right? We voted at our local neighbor's garage, fire station, library, and so forth, right? 1 day to vote, showed our ID, signed the paper poll book, went in. Basically, we went home and didn't think about elections anymore. And the next day, there's the results, right? Now we went to the Voters' Choice Act for the counties that went into it, and we consolidated vote-to-vote centers. And one example I know is Huntington Beach had 111 local places to vote before the Voters' Choice Act. Places like your neighbors or the library or so forth. Now they have 13. And so that's what consolidated all those options for people to vote. But they did go and expand services like you could now register to vote and do other things. They also went that you could vote up to 10 days prior to Election Day with the Voters' Choice Act, and the 3 days after you could accept them. So Gavin Newsom, he was up for recall in 2021, and he survived that effort. That's a whole nother story. We don't have time for that today. He passed Assembly Bill 37 shortly after he survived the recall attempt, and that gave us the election systems that we have today. So every county across the state of California, 22 million voters, every active eligible voter will get a vote-by-mail ballot automatically mailed to them. One of these things in the upcoming election, okay? We can vote up to 29 days early by mail, and we can start voting in person up to 10 days early. We can legally accept ballots up to 7 days now after Election Day if they're properly postmarked. So we went in less than 10 years from one day of elections to 37 days of elections. So just think about the cost to us as taxpayers about going from one day with a bunch of volunteers at their local library to now this 29 days of this infrastructure that we're all paying for. So those are the two of the challenges from the Voters' Choice Act and the VoteCal system. So then what does this equate to? Well, from 2016 through 2022, if you went out and you didn't vote, right, then this vote by mail ballot sent to you is basically trash. If you went and voted in person instead and didn't use this is basically trash. If a ballot came to your house and someone's name that didn't live there anymore, that ballot is trash. If it's undeliverable because of an address, it's trash. All those add up to nothing but trash and waste in this current system that we've got. So from 2016 to 2022, when we started that system, we've wasted over 75 million unused ballots in California alone. 75 million. Now, this here is represented by clouds. They're about 4 miles up there. Planes fly about 7 miles high. This stack of ballots is about 2 miles short of reaching space. But I don't know many astronauts from my personal life, and most other people don't either. So I created this graphic here. This is Las Vegas, Nevada. That's the Stratosphere Hotel, the tallest building in Las Vegas at 1,149 feet. 271 of those hotels stacked on top of each other is the stack of wasted ballots that we've had since 2016. Does that sound like fiscal responsibility? Does that sound like good stewardship of our environmental resources? No. Yet this just stays and remains unchallenged. So we have work to do. In 2026, we're going to do a ballot measure initiative, but we're not going to say it's because of election fraud or election concerns. It's because we're cutting down all those trees. Do you think we'll get some votes from the other side as well? Right? We got to save those trees. We got to end this unreliable system. Last part here is central control. This is so super important because our state is basically in control of all of our elections across California in ways between the laws and between the VoteCal system that's connecting all the voter rolls together. And when we go in to challenge these things at, say, the or at the county offices, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the times is, well, we're just following the law, you know? They tell you, well, you need to appeal to your state legislator and have them change the law. No, you need to go and appeal our state legislator. You're our county representative. You work for us and we're paying you on our tax dollars. You go to appeal up to Sacramento and fix this abuse and this waste or this poor system. So what's one example of that? Shasta County, in last year, their county board of supervisors, the governing authority of the entire county of Shasta County, voted to get rid of their voting machines in their elections. They're going to go back to hand counting, manual tally of ballots like we did for over 200 years in this country. Imagine that. Immediately, the state legislature passed an urgency statute called AB 969, right here on the bottom. You can look that up. Which basically says that if you have an election with 1,000 or more voters, you have to use machines to tally your election results. So here's the state using all of our tax dollars and their group of 20 attorneys going and threatening basically Shasta County that if you violate this urgency statute, then we're going to sue you and then you're going to have to spend your tax dollars locally, right, to go and defend yourselves. That's central control. That's one example. Shasta County's residents, all they should say is you need to report the results by this time and they need to be under a certified system. That's it. That's all the law should say. But the state's forcing these voting machines onto every county. Every county, including Alpine County, which guess what? Has less than 1,000 registered voters. We have 12 counties in California that don't even have 15,000 registered voters in any one county. Why do you need machines? But guess what? The state gives them those machines. Says, oh, well, you can't afford them, so we're going to go ahead and give them to you. We've got this grant program. Centrally controlling all of this across the entire state. Example number 2, Huntington Beach here in Orange County. They passed a ballot measure in 2024's primary, right? Now, they're a charter city, which we'll talk about in a moment. That's particularly important because in a charter city, the city council really doesn't have authority to just go and change the charter. All they can do is put forth a ballot measure that the citizens vote on to change their charter. And what they said was they wanted to have in their local elections, they wanted to require an ID to vote in their municipal elections. Imagine that. Oh my God. Adds 20 more vote centers of those the ones that were taken away, so they'd go from 13 to 33. And then our drop boxes that are remote out there, they're unstaffed for 29 days of early voting, 24/7, they're open, anyone can access them. The law says that they shall be monitored. Did I have that? Yep. The law says if feasible, drop boxes shall be monitored. Monitored. Monitored means watch closely. It doesn't mean put a pretty camera up there and then go and wonder why we have no video footage later. It means putting staff onto it to actually monitor these closely. Ballot harvesting is legal in California, but every one of those ballots that's harvested needs to have a signature of who's actually carried that ballot. It's called the chain of custody. We'd like to know that that's how those drop boxes are being stuffed. So that's what Huntington Beach went and did. And so with immediate effect, but when they announced this ballot measure, the state of California sued Huntington Beach. And the judge threw it out, said they haven't even passed it yet. How can you sue them? So it's preemptive lawfare to let every other city know, don't you dare. Don't you dare think about doing what Huntington Beach is talking about doing. So the citizens passed that by a 7% margin. The citizens of Huntington Beach said, we want all three of these things. And so guess what the state did after it passed? Sued them. And then DUI Dave Min, which is one of our local representatives down here, he drafted SB 1174, which is passed now, that says any city, even a charter city in California, cannot require an ID to vote. Why do you think that is? 32 states out of our 50 states require some form of ID. 23 of them require a photo ID. So you could say that California is the exception, not the standard. Well, why would they not want to require an ID? Why would they want to prohibit a local municipal election from being able to require an ID? Now, the good news is, once it goes through the legal system, the California State Constitution gives charter cities extraordinary power, one of them being over their elections. And so they have all authority over their elections and how to run their local municipal elections. They just can't tell the county how to run theirs or the state how to run theirs. So when that all plays out, ultimately Huntington Beach will win, and they've got the fighters there. They are our beachhead for this upcoming election. They are going to be the model for good local governance for Orange County, and the model we want to start duplicating across all of Orange County. We already have 10 charter cities in Orange County that we can work on and start with. So that's the drop boxes. Why don't we want machines? Boy, we've heard a lot in the last 3.5 to 4 years, right, since 2020. The bottom line, they're not in our control. We can't access the source code. They're made with parts that we can't open up and even look at. Many of those parts are made on HP or Dell motherboards. All those come from overseas components. There is no voting system in the United States that's made with 100% U.S. sourced components right now. So from that simple standpoint, if they said, yeah, you guys can open them up, let's check them out and inspect them together. Check that box. As they said, this is all open source, which that means we can inspect the source code. What is this actually doing with our ballots when we insert paper into it? We'd check that box and say, great, all right, we're getting closer. But those things aren't there, and they're not in our hands. They're in the control of somebody else. 39 of our counties are Dominion counties. 13 of our counties are Hart InterCivic, like we have here. 5 of them are ES&S, and then one county that is LA County has its own proprietary technology. Again, another good reason not to be in LA County. It's built on the Smartmatic system, who was kicked out of Venezuela after destroying one of their elections. And their register of voter was already sued in Washington for ruining an election up in Washington State. But their county board of supervisors said, that's the perfect guy to come here and run our elections. It's amazing. What type of election systems do we want? Someone asked that. Well, if we don't want the machines, what kind of system do we want? If we've got a problem with all this vote by mail stuff, what kind of system do we want? We just simply want an election system with nothing left to trust. One day of elections. I walk in, I've signed a paper poll book. This is the only place I can vote. I show my ID. I go and cast my ballot. It goes into a secured box. It's all under video surveillance, except for where I'm casting my ballot. And then I come back at 7 o'clock at night, and that's when the counting starts. That's all under video surveillance, and you can watch your ballot actually be counted and tabulated. And then there's a tally at the end of it it's tallied up like a bingo card. Super simple, easy, transparent, functional. We go home the next day, we find out the results. That's what our election should be. An election system with nothing left to trust. And we want to start telling people that. All we're looking for is an election system with nothing left to trust. Well, what do we have to trust? The machines, the system, the people, the drop boxes, the lack of video surveillance. And the list goes on and on and on. I need to keep going? I should have only gotten to one. It should only be one thing in my elections that I have to trust, that I have to now go and change that. An election with nothing left to trust is what we should all be fighting for here. So who is Patriot Force California? We're really about sharing knowledge and getting this education out there to people. This takes multiple times of exposure, of really learning this stuff and hearing this stuff, and active voter and inactive voter and a canceled voter and a provisional ballot and conditional voter registration and the list. It's just all these complexities that we shouldn't really have in our elections. Our elections are this: voters, votes, and counts. That's what we should simplify our entire election system down to. Voters, votes, and counts. Learning civic duty. Civic duty goes way beyond just following the law and paying our taxes. After we get good people elected into office right now, more than ever, those people need us to show up. Number one, to hold them accountable, remind them why they got elected into office before they fall into this culture of corruption. Number two, if we don't show up to these city council meetings or to these board of supervisor meetings and show that we're there in support and solidarity and they've got our voice and we've got their back, then somebody else is going to be showing up. And that tends to be people that have a different political ideology than we do. And they're loud, and they're in numbers, and they're applauding. And so these are the things that our civic duty doesn't end after November 5th this year. We have to fight for those local candidates, and then we need to start to hold them accountable and bring more people into local governance. I don't want to go and have to go to Sacramento all the time. We should just have good city councils that are willing to fight for us, to hold the county accountable, to make them fight for us, to hold the state accountable. Your local city is as far as any of us should have to go, unless you're in an unincorporated part of the county. Then you have to go to the county, obviously, at that point. Communication and cooperation, we have to get all these groups to work together. We've got to stop having these ultra compartmentalized. I understand you've got your mission and there's fundraising and things and so forth and legal matters. That's all fine. Keep that stuff compartmentalized. But what is our goal for the state? What is our really goal? What is it we want to accomplish? What is our target? Because if we go through that and don't have that, I start a diet, but I want to lose a certain number of pounds, right? And I just start dieting. Those aren't as successful as when I say, I want to lose 30 pounds, and then I'll see where I get from there. So we have to have a goal as a state and as organized, as a group of organizations. Self-governance, without self-governing, again, if we're not involved in our own governance, then someone else is going to do that. If we're not involved in our children's upbringing, someone else is going to do that. Our health choices, our food supply, somebody else is going to do that. And a lot of us are starting to see the impacts of that in our culture and in our country. A lot of things we've seen since 2020, Masks don't work. These are two very, very important articles here. These are in our Constitution. In California's Constitution, Article 2 is actually for voting. And so under voting, it says all political power is inherent in the people. Anybody confused? But we're not wielding that, are we? We don't know yet how to wield those things. And we've learned so much in the last few years since 2020, but we have a lot more to learn before we actually get back our government working for us. But we have to remember this because our Constitution supports our right to demand compliance. I don't mean with pitchforks and torches, and I hope we never, ever get there. But we have to stop asking for permission. These people are supposed to work for us. They live off of our tax dollars, their retirements off of our tax dollars, the paper that they use, their budgets, their travel time, all of those things. They work for us. And we have to get that back into our culture as far as holding our government accountable. This is about voting. We have a right to have our vote counted, and our current systems can't guarantee that with the machines and the algorithms and the source code and all the different steps and complexities. But if we went into Pat's garage and we voted earlier in the day, and then we went back at 7 and watched my vote be counted, that's about the closest we're going to get, folks, without actually having our name on the ballot. And we don't want that either anymore. We fought a long time for the secrecy of the ballot in this country. But those are things that are in our Constitution under voting. We've got the power. Everything is working for us. We just have to use it for our advantage. So what you need to know and what you can do about it, these are what everything comes down to: 3 things. Build community. We're doing that here today. I see a lot of really new faces, and I hope to be able to talk to you a little bit more during or after lunch. But educating each other. If we don't know how our elections are being run, then how can we impact change? How can we affect change? How can we educate other people so that we can build a movement to actually get these elections back into our hands? So we got to stay educated. And then a commitment. Now, I say a commitment to God because he's my creator, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Some people that are, is that for me? Okay. Sorry, I thought you were handing something. Is my Lord and Savior, but some people are not believers in God or Jesus. So whatever it is there, what is your commitment? Your family, your livelihood, your business, love for your country. Find out whatever it is, but we've got to stay committed in this fight. City councils, we've got to take back our city councils, as I mentioned earlier, en masse. We have about 35 cities in Orange County. We need to take them back, at least half of them, and then we can make the county obsolete. We'll have the cities holding the county accountable for us, and we don't have to go to the county board meetings anymore and waste our Tuesdays all day long. If anybody's ever gone to the county board meeting, it's one of the most frustrating institutions I've ever had to deal with in my entire life. Just the amount of money that's going out unaccountable, the lack of desire to care for anything. We have 5 attorneys that are our county board right now, 2 Republicans and 3 Democrats. Andrew Dobe is one of them, who is now looks like going to be probably thrown out of office because he's been funneling off millions of dollars to an organization that his daughter works for. Like, really? Like, that's the kind of representation that we've got here. Whoopee, right? So we got to get back to the cities and having them work for us. Charter cities and counties. Charter cities have special governance under their own rules instead of under general law. And that is why it's so important for them. How your local life is when you're a charter city puts all that power back into our hands. So we want to make as many cities in Orange County charter cities as possible. And when we're writing the charter, we want to do the same thing that Huntington Beach did. We want an ID to vote. We want to bring back more vote centers. And we want video surveillance on these drop boxes. So those are the 2 things there. Demand more from our elected officials. This really starts at the local level. If we don't have local people really fighting for us and listening to us and wanting to take steps and actions, that's it. That's where your fight's at. Don't worry about anything else. That's where our fight's at. If you don't have the people there locally that are absolutely taking a stand for you and willing to push up that food chain through the county and the state, you're not going to get anywhere by going above that. Not in this state. There are states where that works, but not in this state. Kickstart your communities. You're having me here today, but if you've never heard Dr. Frank speak, I would highly recommend that he comes in and captivates this audience's attention. He's traveled around 48 or 49 states across the United States. He's home 3 days to 4 days a month away from his family and his children. This is all he does since 2020. He has met with secretaries of states and elected officials and everywhere in between that you can imagine. And all he really does essentially is let you know that it's not just California that has a problem. It is this entire country, the secretaries of states that met with him, that had people bring lunch to the Secretary of State meeting and things. And then the Secretary of State, they create strategies. And the Secretary of State, he goes cold feet and just disappears. And so they go and they they confront him at a big public meeting that he's at, and the Secretary of State goes, I've never met with Dr. Frank. Like literally, like the Secretary of State, after meeting with him and everyone bringing him lunch and strategizing all day long, says, oh, I've never met with this man. So the public put enough pressure on him and he resigned. But he has amazing stories, and he works really closely with Mike Lindell's organization, Cause of America, as well. So kickstart your communities there. This is my favorite one, Make a Decision. This is my dear friend Jan Averill. She was one of the founders of the Republican Club of North Orange County, and she's up there involved in, I think, the La Habra Women's Club up there. She lives in La Habra. We were doing some canvassing recently for election integrity. So she drives like 2 or 3 cities over to Whittier and is out knocking on doors in a community that she doesn't even live at. And I'm like, Jan, why do you do it? Because we have to. Like, what are our choices? And she's got kids and grandkids and all sorts of things, precious valuables to look after. But it's my inspiration. We just need to make a decision, whether it's our health, our food, or our lifestyle, or where we live, or any of those things. We need to make a decision. And if our country is that important to us, then that decision starts today after this meeting. Every one of you in this group I know is much more active than most of the people that I speak with, but it really starts today. And our laws, our Bill of Rights, the Constitution, I know you guys are doing some of that stuff. That's so wonderful. So here we go. Let's spend some time on this. Vote early or vote on Election Day in person? I get asked this question a lot. And we are being pumped in right now from President Trump through Charlie Kirk, through the GOP, through the RNC, to every function and fashion, is vote early, vote the first day that the polls open. And I'm here to tell you, if that's what works for you, then this is America. So God bless you having options. What I ask people when they ask me, when should I vote? I say, are you asking me when should you vote, or what is the most secure method to vote? Those are two very, very different questions. I don't have kids and I own my own business. I can pretty much make up whatever schedule I want to go vote. One person in Election Day, whenever it is. For me, as my personal lifestyle and choice, I have a lot of flexibility. But what about a mom that's got 5 or 6 kids and is running around in soccer, and she's a single mom, holding down a job and all these things? Who am I to tell her that you can't go vote early? What are you doing? That's wrong. But that seems to be what the message from the party is right now, that you have to vote early. We're going to bank the vote. It's too big to rig, too big to fail. We're going to vote like the Democrats do. But here's the thing we need to understand. Number one, we're not going to cheat, are we? The NGOs, because I don't like to say the Democrats are going to cheat like it's the actual party or the actual candidate. But the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations that are funneling this money through, that want to have certain parties in power because they can control them, those are the ones that are watching the elections constantly, every day, nonstop, wanting to know who's cast ballots, what's their party affiliation, what propensity of voting. Are they a newly registered voter, or have they voted in the past 30 elections without missing one? And they're studying that constantly so they know how far ahead or behind they are at any given point during that 29 days. The only way to compete with that is to vote in person on Election Day. That's it. Like it or not, you're either going to vote early and it's going to contribute towards somebody seeing where things are at in the election cycle, or you're going to contribute towards giving them least amount of information as possible. And those are your choices. But those are matters of security, not lifestyle. We want to have our vote matter as much as possible. We want it to be secure. So let's say that you do go vote by mail and put it in a drop box or into the mail. And I know we're getting close on time here. And we do get close to that and put it into the mail. What if a ballot was cast for you already? How would you know that? And the answer is you wouldn't. The only way you would know if someone's cast a ballot for you already would be to walk in there to go vote in person. And then for them to say to you, I'm sorry, it appears that you've already cast a ballot. And then what do you do from there? There's a lot of steps to take and a lot of things to remember, and all this is new to us. And that's what they depend on. What happened in Kerry Lake's election in Arizona in 2022? 50 to 60% of the tabulators stopped working. People waiting in 2-3 long-hour lines. And they go, what if they just Kerry Lake us? Are we going to sit there and go, well, maybe next election I'll just go on down to thank you so much, Or is there a time when we're going to actually stand as Californians and as Americans and say, no, enough's enough. What is this system that you've got here that you've put me into that would even allow something like this? This is ridiculous. And now I'm going to be disenfranchised and told I need to vote some different method that may or may not be counted? That's absolutely just wrong. And it's a wrong system that we've got that's contributing towards that. So vote in person on election day helps to prevent cheating as much as we possibly can with the tools we have as citizens. That's it. You really want to go to the extreme? Don't go to the polls until about 6 o'clock at night. That's ultimately that, because after 8 o'clock at night, that's it. The cheating really gets much more difficult at that point. But the 29 days of early voting, it's there. Now, we do have low propensity voters, and this is so important here. This is some stuff, this is from Dr. Frank. You can see this is what randomized voter rolls used to look like. This is now our centrally controlled voter rolls. Doesn't look very good to us. This is the randomized voter turnout. Now this is what centralized control voter turnout looks like. Not good for us. What is the reality? Ballot harvesting is legal here. We need to increase voter participation. We've got to get people out to vote. Take them, drive them if they can't get there. Get their ballot. If they're not going to be willing to, go ahead and ballot harvest for them and get that ballot. Have them fill it out and get it in there, right? We need to do everything we can to win in this upcoming election. But it's not the only way to win where we're going to just stuff it and it's too big to rig. And if you choose to vote in person on election day, you're a delinquent voter. That's what the party wants to title you as. You're a delinquent voter if you choose to go vote in person on election day. When did we start labeling each other here like a bunch of communists? This is ridiculous. We do have low propensity voters that do not vote in every election. We got to get them out. We do need to encourage others to vote no matter how they participate. Here, take a picture of this, show it to someone. That takes you directly to the Register a Vote page on the Secretary of State's website. They can register in a couple of minutes. We need to encourage people to register to vote. We need to get very good at overcoming rejections. Why should I bother voting? This whole thing is rigged. You know what? I used to feel exactly like you did, ma'am or sir. And let me tell you what I found out. There are thousands of people across this state that are giving tens of thousands of their hours of precious time trying to fix this whole election system. You know what they're asking of us? Take an hour to go vote. Will you do that? Will you commit to giving an hour of your time to go vote when they're giving tens and tens of thousands of hours of their precious time? We have to get good at overcoming these rejections. Why vote for Trump? Because he's not representing a party that's filled with evil and attacking our children and sexualizing them and putting pornography into school libraries and trying to force vaccinate them and force vaccinate others if cancel their lifestyles. How many other things do we need to tell people? Why should we vote for Trump? I don't particularly care for his mean tweets sometimes either. It's not the way that I would go and communicate. But I often tell people when they go, yeah, but just if he would just be a little bit less of a bully, I say, do you think the government's corrupt? And they go, oh, God, the government, that's so corrupt. If you think the government's that corrupt, what kind of bully do you think you need to go and change it? And the lights go off. We have to get really good at overcoming rejections. We need to promote American values. You know, I'm a conservative. I'm proud to say that loudly, outspoken about it. I Trump this, MAGA this, everywhere. I'm wearing my American flag socks today. I'm outspoken about it everywhere, all the time. But when we get elected into office, we don't represent one voter. that has a certain ideological belief system that we agree to. When we get elected into office, we represent all Americans or all people of Huntington Beach or all people of Laguna Woods or all people of Orange County. And that's what we need to get our servant representatives back towards, is representing us on American values. We don't want a pride flag on the city council building, but we also don't want to celebrate Asian Pacific Islander Awareness Month, or just Women's Month, or just Men's Month, or just Black History Month. We don't want the city to do anything that divides us as a people, as Americans. That stuff all comes later through local community efforts. So I'm going to play this when I'm done. There we go. You can go take this, scan it with your phone. It'll take you to a Dropbox link, and it'll give you this page here. Yes, and you're going to be handing this out in paper here today at this event. This tells you how to secure your vote and what are the ways. If securing your vote is the most important thing, then that tells you how to go and secure your vote. And it also tells you right here at section F, if for some reason you're told you've already voted, there's a whole section that describes everything that you need to do and how to best protect your rights as citizens of this wonderful state and country. These are obviously a lot of organizations. There's so much that you can get involved in depending on what your skill set or your interest level is. And I can email you this presentation and you can freely share this with anybody. So is our country at war? Well, it's a spiritual battle first and foremost. There's no tanks in the street and bullets overhead, but it's a spiritual battle for the soul of this country. And once America falls, the sad reality is the world will probably never be the same. There's never been a human experiment like America in the history of the world, at least as far as we know. And there has been republics, but there hasn't been a constitutional republic from the founding and inspiration of the country built on representative government. And that is unique to America. And there's not been one that's been built on human liberty based on inalienable rights given to us by our Creator as part of our founding. And so those things are worthwhile to fight for because they've never been in history again, and most likely if America falls, won't be in history in any time in the future. We're about 250 years old. The Roman Empire was about 800 years old, and it fell overnight as far as history is written. We have the world trades in American dollars, has for about 75 years. Before that, the sterling pound was what the world traded in for 150 years. So we've had it for about half as long, and look at the power of what Great Britain became after they stopped trading in sterling pounds. So this is a spiritual battle. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She put this list together of all these ways that we're at war. And what was most astonishing to me was that what was, and I'll send this to you to send out, this was missing. A society that's growing more secular and away from God. As a matter of fact, it says in 2007, our country was about 16% secular based on polls, and now we're getting close to 30%. So we're not heading in the right direction. And how do we change that? Well, we need to have good pastors that are willing to fight and stand for all of us as well, don't we? And not just ones that just want to open a church just to go along to get along. Last couple slides here. History repeats itself. I'll just go through this quickly. This is a song from the 1970s, 1971. Well, we give them the election. They keep filling our heads full of lies. Can we trust in new direction when their promises are in disguise? Well, someday the truth will catch up. I just hope it don't catch us all by surprise. Sound familiar? We preach this thing religion, but we show no faith at all. We follow suit on Sunday, but on Monday we forget it all. Should the times find us needing him, then my friends, Lord, have mercy on our soul. 1971. How long ago was that? Like that, we can't forget this time. We are writing history today, ladies and gentlemen. This is the time that will be read about in 30 or 40 years from now as hopefully one of the most greatest awakenings of any country in the history of humanity. And I'm thrilled to be a part of this. What's the right place of government? Thomas Paine said the society in every state's a blessing. The good stuff, the bad stuff, all of those things in society, they're great. But government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil, and in its worst state, an intolerable one. Who here feels we're a little close to intolerance if we haven't already gotten there? It's getting close. It's getting close. So this is my commitment to you, just like the founders of our great country, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, that God has his hand out, and for those that are willing to take it and go and lead through this battle, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. This is 56 people that stood against the greatest military power of the world at the time and said, enough's enough. In the middle of the Revolutionary War, right? It wasn't the Declaration that started the Revolutionary War. They were in the Revolutionary War. They wrote the Declaration of Independence. What started the Revolutionary War? One of the big events was a fight over tax on tea. Remember that whole story? 1 to 2% tax on tea is what started the momentum of leading towards the founding of this country. How many ways are we taxed today? At what percentages? And we just, okay, yep. But it's not our generation's fault, and it's not the prior generation's fault. This has happened over 100 plus years through generations and generations, but now, today, we're getting to know it. We're seeing evil for what it is, and we have the ability to expose it to the light and bring it out there and eradicate it from our society. It's going to take time, and I'm so proud to stand here with all of you patriots. I know it's at 12:30 is when I'm supposed to be done, so I apologize for going a little over, but I hope it was good for you. Thank you all so much for giving me some of your precious time. It means so much to me. I will take a couple of questions until the boss cuts it off here. Yes, ma'am.
I do voter recommendations from a conservative viewpoint for all of Orange County. I'll talk later on and tell you all about that.
Great.
But on my site, I have this track your ballot so that you know when it's received and counted. And is that a good idea?
Well, you can use it, but you don't know it was you can use it, but you don't know it was your ballot necessarily if one was cast before you. So there's nowhere for you to see that your particular ballot was the one received.
But when I get home, it says today you voted today and it was counted. Is that not good?
So a majority of people aren't using ballot tracks, and so you're aware of that, and you're helping to spread that information and share that awareness. But there are a lot of people that aren't using ballot tracks and aren't even aware of these systems to go and be able to track it. So, of course, 100%. Okay. Absolutely. Okay. Question? Back there in the back.
Hi there. I'm looking at your sheet here, and under number 2, vote in person, A, take your incomplete, unopened mail-in ballot to the voting center and vote in person. Then further down, some counties have the ballot marking machine. In the last couple of years, I've taken my ballot that I get mailed to me, filled it out, walked it in on the voting day, and handed it in. But you've got several little options here, so what would be the better to?
When you handed it in, was it in an envelope?
Definitely.
So that's no different than a vote by mail ballot. And the reason that we want you to vote in person at the little privacy booth and then scan it yourself is because your ballot's going to go through signature verification and through a bunch of hands and processes.
Great. Good
And so
to know.
you're releasing your change. Your vote and your voice, you're releasing that to some other system. It may be because I'm holding it down here. To some other system. So does it mean that it's not going to get counted? No, of course not. Most of them do. The point about what is the most secure method is for you to go in there and say, hi, I'm here to vote. They say, what's your name? There's my name. What's your address? There's your address. That's really all every county asks for. I've heard Sonoma County now is asking for date of birth, but they don't ask you for ID. If you hold up your ID, they're like, don't give me that. So name and address. Here's your ballot. Go vote. go vote and check it off in the privacy thing, and then you get to scan it yourself. And once that's done, it's tabulated, it's scanned. No one else is going to touch that ballot or have any control over it.
Okay, which is
Now,
the-
not every county allows that, but Orange County does. And then
I-
just quickly, I'm sorry, in 2020, after 2022, they changed the law. Now you can actually use this as your in-person ballot. Scan it as your in-person ballot, but I don't advise opening this until you get to the office in case they told you you've already voted. Then you can go, how have I already voted? This isn't even open. So that's what my sheet talks about. Continue.
In reference then to, I think most of us mark things ahead of time on something, whether it's the practice ballot or whatever, and generally we kind of need to take it with us. So between the unopened ballot, taking what I call your cheat sheet in with you, how would you manage that? Thank you.
So in the back of the guide that you each get is a sample ballot. That's where you should fill out your choices to go and vote in person. This is your chain of custody that you've never voted. This is your proof that you've never voted. And oftentimes it's a clerical error that's happened, and they've seen that and shown that and proved that out. But if you go in, you're gonna, and they say you've already voted, they're gonna give you what's called a provisional ballot. And those provisional ballots get set aside. And they're gonna get counted after the elections, only in the case that the elections were really super close outcome, and that those ballots might have changed the outcome of that. So I don't wanna vote on a provisional, conditional, something different ballot. I wanna vote on my own ballot. And I wanna be able to scan it, and so that once I'm done with it and it leaves my hands, there's nothing else. We have counties in this state where nobody gets to scan their own ballot. All they can do when they fill it out by hand is stick it into the secured box, and someone else from the county is gonna go grab that and scan it for them later. So that's where there's no consistent program in California for how we handle every single election from every county.
Are the mail-in ballots counted in Orange County prior to Election Day, or do they wait till all the mail-in ballots are in and start counting them the day after the election?
I like that. That's a trick question. So, are the ballots counted before Election Day? The simplest answer is no. That violates state law. The very highly complex answer is when they take the ballot and they put it through what's called a ballot tabulator, that creates a record. It's called a cast vote record. That shows this is a vote for Biden or one for Trump. This is a vote for Newsom or for someone else. That's a record of each vote that was cast. Now, by law, that stays with the machine or with the secured storage device only up until after 7 o'clock on election night. Then they can take that secured storage device and they take it to a master tabulation room where they start reporting results. So that's the complex answer. So as they're scanning ballots through early voting and someone can access that database, then they can tell exactly what the vote tally is at any point during the 29 days of early voting. And cybersecurity is a whole in-depth conversation. We don't have cybersecurity experts that run our elections. Our register of voter, albeit he's got more degrees than I do and more accreditations through ISO certifications, he's got a degree in religion and communications. And if that screams cybersecurity or high tech to you or large data pattern sets, then that's probably why we're okay with having someone like that run our elections. He's not qualified to run these types of elections because they're run on a system that's more like a bank. And banks have very high levels of security risk, and they have high concerns about protecting our money. But like my vote, it's priceless to me. You couldn't put a number on my vote and my voice. So considering that, how do I want to treat that vote and that voice? Well, I would prefer that they didn't even scan the ballots until 7 o'clock on election night. Why? Because it would prevent anyone from accessing the early information. But they just tell us, no, we've got an air gap. Don't worry about it. With quantum computers, you can hack computers now through the power cable. You don't need Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or any of this stuff. So it's so far beyond an advance from where they think things are, albeit they do take steps. They do take the necessary requirements, antivirus software and those types of things. But from the way military or Russia can go and tap into something, or a really good hacker, they have no experience at the office to be able to plan for that or account for that. They're not getting into the BIOS of the computer during every election and going, aha, where did this come from? You can use a SQL management software that basically you can go in and do and change and manipulate what you want, and then basically deletes all of your steps that you were even in there. So there's so many things, and that's why your simple answer is no, they only count them at 7 o'clock on election night. The complex answer is when they scan this through a machine, that tabulation count is somewhere recorded live. Whether it can be accessed or not is a whole different story. Are we wrapped up? All you, boss. I can skip lunch and talk all day. So the reason that they want you to vote early is because they have resources, right? Anybody that's ever resources, we have limited and financial resources, right? So if you go vote early, then they're going to stop sending you mailers. They're going to stop sending you text messages. They're going to stop sending people to knock on your door to see if you've already voted. I'm a business, sir, and straight up, I understand that and get that flat on its face. There's no denying that doesn't help with resources. The side that I don't think is being fully exposed is that we're not willing to cheat like these NGOs are. We've been told by a lady in San Diego County, she was offered up to $200 for her ballot. I shouldn't say up to. She was offered $200 for her ballot. It's usually about 15 to 20 is what we hear around the state. We're not going to do that. That's illegal. You can't buy someone's ballot. We're also not going to fabricate votes. And what we see happening is the earlier that you vote, these NGOs and the people and these organizations that want to control the elections and the outcomes, they just register more people and create more ballots and have those people vote now. And so if we're not going to compete on that level, the best way for us to surprise them is to vote in person on election day. But the low propensity voter that doesn't vote in every election, that should be a concern to you as much as it is a concern to the party and what they're trying to do. That's why the vote, get out the vote, voter participation. Hey, are you voting? Person that's checking me out at the liquor store, person that I run to at the shoe store. Hey, are you registered to vote? Be a little uncomfortable now when you can have that choice, or maybe be a lot uncomfortable later when you don't. So we've got to be expressive. We've got to talk to people, our family members, even if they know we're for Trump and are you still registered? Are you still voting? Great. That's all I can ask. You may be voting for something different than I'd like, but within the party, they want you to vote early to get those resources freed up. And that's it. That's it, because no one gets to see the election results until after 7 o'clock on election night. That's going to disenfranchise voter, and the first reporting that, boom, oh, there's the Democrat wave, and everybody's going and reporting this. Well, if they were reporting what's going on in New York before they're reporting what's going on in California, then that could probably disenfranchise. Oh, look, man, no, it's this blue wave everywhere across the United States. Why even bother voting? So there's some of that to be considered as well.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to take any more questions right now. We're going to let Urson sit down and eat, so please give him about 15 minutes before you come up and ask questions. So now everyone, relax and enjoy your lunch.